Hello everyone. In the last video I wrote a chronological report and I asked you to read through it and then I set you a task afterwards. Now I will go through that task and talk about it in a minute, but first I'm going to read that report to you, so listening along. Chronological Report, the first moon landing, subheading, Introduction. This chronological report is all about the very first moon landing. It details the events before and after NASA first landed on the moon. I will discuss how this happened and the 3 astronauts involved. Dreaming of the moon, another subheading. First, it is important to understand that the idea of going to the moon is not new. In fact, Jules Verne wrote about travelling to the moon over 150 years ago. Now, I didn't add this in, but he actually described it exactly. Somebody launching from America and landing in the Pacific Ocean. He detailed all that, and that's exactly what happened. In the late 1950s and throughout the 1960s, 2 countries wanted to make this dream a reality. The USA and the USSR both wanted to be the first countries to put a person on the moon, and their competition was named the space race. In 1961, Yuri Gagarin, a Russian cosmonaut, was the first person to go into space, and he was able to orbit, that means to go right the way around, orbit the Earth. Following this, the US government, well, they weren't very happy that the USSR had beat them into space, so they gave NASA, the American Space Agency, $25 billion to beat the USSR and put the first person on the moon. New subheading, Before the moon landing. To ensure they were ready, NASA conducted experiments and found a good landing spot on the moon, known as the Sea of Tranquility. Next, they took photos of the moon, and some of the first photos of space, or in space rather. They created the Apollo missions, which included the first ever spacewalk. That's where you get out of a spaceship and you walk along it in space. After that, they built a crew of expert astronauts. Finally, they were ready. New subheading, new paragraph. On the 16th of July, 1969, 3 astronauts, Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins, boarded the Saturn V rocket and blasted off into space. It took them 4 whole days to reach the moon. When they arrived, they circled it and discovered the moon had a dark side without any sunlight. Part of the ship had to remain in orbit so that they could get back to it later. Whilst the landing module, which was called the Eagle, broke off to land on the moon. Sadly, Michael Collins had to pilot the bit that was going around the moon, so he had to stay on the orbiting part of the ship. That meant he didn't get to actually go on the moon. Next paragraph, next subheading, the moon landing. Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin landed the Eagle, which was the name of the landing module, on the moon. Once there, Neil Armstrong, he was the first one out of the ship, so the first one to stand on the moon. He said, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." And what he was really saying there was, all I've done is taken one step. But as humans, as all of us, this is a huge leap. We've gone from the Earth to the moon. Next, the astronauts walked to the moon. They collected moon dust and specimens from the moon. They conducted experiments. They put a little reflective panel down so that we could shine lasers at the moon to measure the exact distance. They were on the moon for 2 hours and planted the American flag before they left. New subheading, new paragraph, returning home. After they had finished and received a call from the president, they got a telephone call on the moon. They joined the command module again and returned home. The ship landed in the Pacific Ocean and the astronauts were collected by helicopter. That's because they basically had to fall to Earth and open parachutes just before they landed, and they landed in the ocean. They had to quarantine for 3 weeks. President Nixon visited them whilst they were in quarantine. Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins became heroes, and the moon landing was watched by millions of people all over the world. They filmed it. In fact, they filmed it whilst they were on the moon, and if you look on YouTube, which I suggest you do, you could actually watch a clip of the first moon landing. There's some videos inside the ship, and then there's a video on the moon. Go and check it out. It's really fascinating. Last paragraph, space travel today. So this is thinking about now, the present. We've not been back to the moon since the 1970s because it costs so much to travel into space. However, most astronauts still travel to the International Space Station. That's there's basically a satellite that goes all the way around the Earth. It continuously orbits the Earth, and people can fly up there and stay on there. Scientists go and do experiments on there in space. And there are plans to one day travel to Mars. There are even plans for a space hotel. Could you imagine traveling to space? What do you think it would be like? Right. So that is the report that I wrote, and then I asked you to do a couple of things. The first one was, what do you think a chronological report is? Now, we did a non-chronological report before, and I told you that that was a report that doesn't have to be in time order. So a chronological report, the opposite, it does have to be in time order. That's why we use words like first, then, next, after that. It's like a timeline, like your day. You wake up in the morning, that happens first. Then you go brush your teeth, or you have your breakfast, then you brush your teeth. Then you come downstairs, you do some work, next, then, after that, all in time order. What happened first, what happened last. That is a chronological report. We can't start with them landing on the moon because that wasn't the first thing that happened. So hopefully that clears up a little bit what a chronological report is. It's just time order. So what features do we use? Well, we use time words, like I just did, first, next, then, after that. But we also use time as in dates. If you read back through it, you'll notice that I used actual dates, the years, the days, the calendar, the months, etc. I told you when it happened. Another thing I used in my chronological report was facts. It is factual, it's non-fiction. So I presented lots and lots of facts, and again, they were in time order. So adverbials with time, and then facts. It is also in paragraphs, so paragraphs is a feature, and subheadings are a feature. And you can see throughout it, I put different subheadings in. There was other features too. It had an introduction. It finished with a kind of conclusion, which was like looking at what happens now. I put a couple of questions in there. There was lots of features, but the main ones, time words, time order, paragraph, subheadings. Okay. And then the last part of the task was to collect some facts about the moon landing. Now, there was lots and lots and lots of facts in there. And me just reading it now, I gave you lots and lots of facts as well. So hopefully you know a lot. Don't worry about that so much this week, because your task isn't to write it this week. That's going to be next week's task. Well, at least the main part of it. We're not going to write the main part of it this week. Sorry, the screen's a bit fuzzy. Is that better? Yeah, I think that's better. The main part we're going to write next week. Today, we're just going to do an introduction, which you should be excellent at, because in our non-chronological report, we wrote an introduction. And all I want you to do for this introduction, you can use mine as a model, is write me 3 sentences. The first, telling me what this piece of work is. It's a chronological report. If you can't remember what that is, go back in this video to me talking about it and find out again. And then write me an opening sentence. This is a chronological report. A chronological report is all about... Then tell me what this chronological report is about. This chronological report is going to be about, and it's about the moon landing, isn't it? So explain that. And then, like before, just give me one little fact. Maybe in the last sentence you could tell me the names of the 3 astronauts. It will focus on 3 astronauts: Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins. Or you can give me another little mini fact about the moon landing before we start. But it should be 3 sentences. First, what is a chronological report? Because that's what this is. Second, what is this chronological report all about? Third, one little fact. I haven't put a worksheet below because I just want you to do it either on plain paper, on lined paper if you have that, or on a Word document. Keep that safe. We will add to it next week. Thanks a lot for listening, and as ever, happy learning.